Welcome to Stan the Wine Man TV. I am your host, Stan Rattan, and this is the Blue Collar Wine Show. A little cold out here, where I help you spend your wine dollars wisely. You can see we're doing another blind tasting, and this time it is Syrah blind. And I'm a big fan of Syrah, but I noticed that sales of Syrah have been very, very soft over the last few years, and I've always wondered about that. One of my explanations, and I want your opinion on this too, so make a comment why you think that's the case. But I think there's two reasons. First of all, Shiraz from Australia has tanked, mainly because I think they over advertise their cheap Jacob's Creek, Yellowtail Shiraz, and people just got sick and tired of it. It was a rage back in the day, and now people are just tired of it. And during all that time, we taught, us wine guys, girls, taught everybody that Shiraz and Syrah were the same thing. They call Syrah Shiraz in South Africa, and they call it, or in Africa, and they call it Shiraz in Australia. But the rest of the world calls it Syrah. Not the, I mean, obviously during the rage of Shiraz, a few producers started changing the name of their Syrah to Shiraz. The other reason I think, and this probably has more to do with it, is the variation in style of Syrah. A lot of people get nervous when they go to buy a varietal that shows so much variation in the style. And Syrah can go from very bright blueberry to very bacon fat, unctuous, and everywhere in between. So I think that might have an effect on why people, shy away from buying it. Now, if they have a wine steward that they can go to and say, hey, what's the style of the Syrah? Then that might help them. But a lot of times you just walk into a grocery store, there's nobody there, and you just kind of have to pick it out. So they go for the safe choices. Merlot, Cab, those don't show as much variation in style. Pinot Noir can be, well, Pinot Noir can, but usually you have to go old world. So let's say this new world style is pretty consistent. And then, and then of course red blends are huge. We know that. So, and Zinfandel. Zinfandel is pretty predictable as well. So let's get started right off the bat. We're gonna all of these Syrahs are from different areas. They're not all from the same state or part of the world. So let's get started right off the bat. Number one. I think it's a variation in style now. I mean, Australia's been out of the picture for a long time, which I think is sad, but it has been. So fairly dark. Oh, it's a really, really dark red. Yeah, hedging towards blackish. Let's see what we get on the nose. A little licorice. I'm getting some plum and boysenberry notes. A little hint of vanilla coming through. Yeah, let's see what we get on the palate. Nice boysenberry notes on this one. Licorice comes through on the mid palate. A little bit of expansion on the mid palate. Some of the plum notes come through there. Nicely integrated acidity. Good depth on this wine. A little toastiness on the backside of this one. Some a little bit of chalkiness on the tannins. Of course, Syrah's big in the Rhone Valley. That's Grenache Syrah, Mourvedre, GSM blends. And you know what? What's interesting is GSM blends do really well in the store I work at, and sometimes they're Syrah dominant. So people do like Syrah. They just don't realize that they like it that much, I guess. Finishes with just a touch of blueberry, which I did not get on the nose. The licorice lingers. Yeah. Then the vanilla, just right at the very end, but not in a big way. Of course, vanilla can come from the oak treatment, but this doesn't, the oak isn't really super obvious on this one. Yeah, nice start. Okay, let's move on to number 2. But I really am curious if you've thought about it. I mean, how many of you have thought about Syrah? Why you think maybe, why you personally think people kind of shy away from it sometimes? I think it's a great food wine. Again, color very similar, really dark on this one. You can hardly see through it. Just barely see through it. Let's see what we get on the nose. This pops a little bit more on the nose. Definitely a toastiness on this one. Getting a little bit of red cherry. Red cherry, kind of a red flower notes coming through. A little bit of boysenberry as well. Let's see what we get on the palate. This tips into that barely bacon fat note that I'm getting through on this. Very common in a lot of Syrahs. You get that kind of bacon fat characteristic. There's some cherry notes coming through with the bacon fat. Boysenberry notes. The nicely integrated acidity. A little kind of almost like wood tannins on the finish. Almost, yeah, definitely strong wood tannins on the backside. That's where the toastiness came through on the nose. You see those wood tannins are, in my opinion, really strong on this one, on the back end. Nice up front, you get that kind of a boysenberry cherry thing going on. But then it kind of dominates with the wood tannins on the finish. Very dry. Very dry. Ooh. Almost, in my opinion, too dry. But, you know, with a little bit of food, this would be good with the steak, probably. Would help it, for sure. But, yeah. I'm not super excited about that one. Let's move on to the next one. Number 3. A lot of times I'll say, well, you know, it doesn't have any flaws. What I mean by flaws is, you know, stinky, or, you know, the winemaking method maybe was a little bit off, but no, it's just very dry in the finish. I think it's the wood tannins kind of dry your mouth out, but I think food would help that one quite a bit. Number 3, let's again about the same as the other two, really dark. This one's actually might be the darkest of the bunch. Yeah, for sure. Let's see what we get on the nose. Again, a little bit of baking fat, a little bit of dark flowers, some cherries, a boysenberry. This one I get a little bit of blueberry on the nose as well. Kind of a baking spice component coming through. I like the nose on this one. Let's see what we get on the palate. This one has more depth to it than the other two. You get a little bit of that baking fat on the back end of this one. Up front, I get boysenberry, cherry, dark cherry, boysenberry, just an underscore of blueberry, or I like to say a kiss of blueberry. A little toastiness on this one as well, which you kind of expect from Syrah. I'm getting some wood tannins on this one, not as strong as number 2, but still they're there. It's not as dry as number 2. It's kind of right in there with number 1 as far as fruit depth, but this has good complexity, nice depth of fruit. Nice balance of acidity. Yeah, I like this one. Almost like a bitterness on the backside, but not a bad way. It's just a touch. I think for sure if you had some food, you would never get that. That's the cool thing about food and wine, is if they complement each other, it really makes the wine much better, and the food better, of course. So, that's a good wine. Okay. Around, boom, boom, boom. There we go. Okay, with a this one I thought was okay. Wasn't fantastic. I thought the wood tannins were a little strong on the finish. Kind of dried it out. Needs food. I think food might help this wine quite a bit. But with a straight up C, so just an average Syrah, is the 2017 Reineke Syrah, made with organic grapes, which is kind of cool. And this is from Stellenbosch, South Africa. $20. Yeah, $20. Yeah, $20. Wonder how much oak they use on it for $20. I'd hit for the winery to call me and say, you know, we don't use any oak on that. But it was very dry in the finish, and I think they were wood tannins. So in second place with a number 3 with a BB plus, great score, great grade. Oh, is the Two Vintners 2018 Syrah Columbia Valley. This rolls in at $28. 1,100 cases produced. Two Vintners. I like Two Vintners wines. They do a good job. BP plus. Okay, and in first place, now I almost went A- on this, but with the straight up B plus, number 1, I thought this had nice depth, complexity, good integration. This is the Kukula Cellars. Is that what he calls it? Kukula, straight up Kukula, 2019 Noir, Adelaide District, and this is let's see, 85%. Oh, yeah, 85% Syrah. So in the U.S., that can be called a Syrah, as long as it's 75 or up. 10% Counoise and 5% Petite Syrah. So it's not really. It can be called Syrah. This winery just chooses not to do that. They call it Noir. So this rolls in at a whopping $65. 204 cases produced. This is a winery. You have to be a club member to get this wine. This is, once again, I always hope that the less expensive wine gets a little ahead of the other ones, but this one followed the price point: 60, 28, and 20. But you know, nothing wrong with any of these Syrah. But I do want to hear your opinion. Why do you think that's a legit reason? Maybe it's a variation in styles that cause people to, you know, shy away from Syrah. I just want to know. Always good to get input from you guys. And by the way, I'll put the link to Kukula in the description side, so you guys, if you're interested at all, check out their winery. Kevin's a really cool guy. And like I said, it's the only winery that I'm a wine club member, because I can't get their wines any other way. So, all right, there you have it. Syrah, the wine that struggles but is so good. Thanks for taking a little time out of your day. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and tell your friends about this program. I'm growing and growing, and I like it. I just like to know that there's people that like to learn about wine and like to find good values. Thanks for watching. You keep watching, and I'll keep helping you spend your wine dollars wisely.